Good morning. I'm Mark Lawson with Global Chamber Charlotte. We're gathered here to conduct a VIP preview of the Canton Trade Fair. Canton Trade Fair is the largest in the world. Charlotte is home to over 1,000 manufacturing firms who are interested in finding suppliers as well as buyers for their goods and services. At this point, I'd like to introduce Doug Brunke, CEO of Global Chamber. He will give us a preview of our presentation, presenters. Doug?
Thank you, Mark. This is Doug Brunke at our headquarters in Scottsdale, Arizona. Thank you all down in Charlotte for attending today. I think you're going to be wowed by what you're here. We had a similar event the other day, and it was very impressive what everyone spoke about, from Lucia to all of the speakers. And so enjoy the event today. Global Chamber is spreading out to the whole world, 525 metros, including Guangzhou. And so we're very pleased this morning and there this evening in Guangzhou, China, to have Lucia Li from the Canton Fair kicking off our program. Back to you, Mark. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Doug. Great introduction for our speakers. At this point, I'd like to introduce Lucia Liu, who is the Vice President, International Services for Canton Fair. She's instrumental in expanding the fair to include U.S. and other international participants. Lucia?
Okay. Distinguished Mr. Doug Brunke, Mr. Mark Lawson, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's my pleasure to be here and join you at the Canton Fair Promotion Conference here in Charlotte. I would like to express my sincere thanks for the great support of the Global Chamber and a warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for your attention and long-term support to the Canton Fair. Canton Fair has been driving trade cooperation between China and the rest of the world ever since the first session in 1957. It has established trade ties with 215 countries and regions in the world, playing a critical role for China to become a big trading nation. Canton Fair is China's largest platform for international trade, which is both comprehensive and specialized. Each section of the fair is divided into 3 phases and covers an exhibition area of around 1.2 million square meters. Its exhibition themes include 16 industries, which are displayed in 51 specialized sections. In every section, Canton Fair boasts 25,000 exhibitors from home and abroad, and nearly 200,000 international buyers, including about 10,000 buyers from the US. Canton Fair is an open global trading platform with both export and import. As China's #1 fair, we provide a wide range of Chinese products with good quality and competitive price. Canton Fair is also a global trading platform for secure and effective transaction. Only the companies that meet strict standards can exhibit at the fair. Canton Fair has also set up an agency to deal with the IPR and trade disputes, providing security guarantees for both parties. In a nutshell, Canton Fair presents boundless opportunities. No matter you want to import Chinese products, export your products to Chinese markets or to the other countries, Canton Fair is your must choice. With regards to sourcing demands of the Charlotte buyer, we would like to highlight the exhibition sections of industrial components, furniture, retail products and gifts, food and medical products. You can find industrial components in Phase 1 from April 15 to 19th. Furniture, retail products and gifts are located in Phase 2 from April 23rd to 27th. Food and medical products are in Phase 3, from May 1st to 5th. Top brands such as Haier, Media, Green, King, Super, ASD, Rotile are our regular exhibitors. These companies will launch their latest products in the coming Canton Fair in April. Last but not least, thank you very much for coming today, and we look forward to seeing you here at the fair in April. Thank you very much.
We're now going to see a video on the fair itself.
When the spring rain wets the earth and the autumn sun warms the 5 continents, something big happens in China. In every spring and autumn, more than 200,000 buyers from all over the world gather at the China Import and Export Fair, or Canton Fair, the most reputable trade fair in China, to start a fascinating journey to friendship and trade.
Guangzhou 会是中国政府1957年创办的，50多年来，始终保持着旺盛的生命力和蓬勃的发展势头，成为中国历史最久、规模最大、声誉最佳的国际著名展会。广交会是中国对外开放的窗口，是中国对外开放的缩影，是中国对外开放的标志。
Canton Fair, jointly hosted by the Ministry of Commerce and the People's Government of Guangdong Province, and organized by the China Foreign Trade Center, is held twice a year in spring and autumn in Guangzhou, China. Canton Fair has a total exhibition area of 1.18 million square meters and over 60,000 stands. It takes the lead among the world's yearly exhibitions in terms of scale. For over half a century, Canton Fair has never been stopped, even in the turbulent 1960s, or during the SARS epidemic that frightened the world, or during the global financial crisis. Canton Fair plays a significant role in expanding China's opening up and promoting China's foreign trade development. Through Canton Fair, China has strengthened bilateral economic and trade communications with over 210 countries and regions in the world. Since China joined the WTO, Canton Fair has shown even more vigorous vitality and stronger development momentum, promoting gradual transformation and upgrading China's foreign trade.
Ich bin Friedrich Schmidt und komme aus Deutschland. Hier findet man immer eine Überraschung. Als ich vor einigen Jahren zum ersten Mal hierher kam, war ich sofort von dieser Messe fasziniert.
The magnificent Canton Fair complex is a modern, smart, user-friendly, and ecological architectural complex with advanced facilities and complete functions. It is equally famous as the world-class exhibition centers in Hanover and Frankfurt of Germany and Milan of Italy. The Spring Canton Fair is held from April 15th to May 5th, and the Autumn Fair is held from October 15th to November 4th, each divided into 3 phases. Phase 1 of Canton Fair mainly shows electromechanical, lighting, hardware, and building material products. Phase 2 mainly shows light industrial crafts, gifts, and home decorations. Phase 3 mainly shows textiles, garments, food, livestock, medicines, and healthcare products. Canton Fair gathers more than 24,000 excellent exhibitors from all over the world and displays more than 150,000 varieties of products. Every session, a great number of new products appear at Canton Fair, and priority is given to high-tech and low-carbon environmentally friendly products, making Canton Fair a trendsetter in the world. Canton Fair gathers the best buyers from all over the world. In recent years, Canton Fair has been making greater efforts to invite buyers from emerging markets, especially from countries along the One Belt and One Road. As a result, there has been a steady increase in the number of buyers from Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. Nearly 100 companies among the world's top 250 retailers, released in 2014, have attended Canton Fair. The top 10 retailers, including Walmart, Carrefour, and Tesco, have all set up purchasing offices at the multinational sourcing service. Canton Fair has a brand exhibition area, which encourages and helps companies and products with proprietary brands, high technical content, and high added value to take part in the exhibition. In the official website of the 118th Canton Fair, a brand window section is introduced to provide global buyers with information on the brand enterprises and their quality products at Canton Fair. Buyers can have a glance at the first-rate products in China here. In 2014, in order to meet international market demand, the exhibition section configuration was optimized by adding 3 new themes, i.e. outdoor spa equipment, new energy, and pet products. A layout consisting of 16 major product categories and 50 exhibition sections is formed.
Auf jeder Messe kann ich viele neue Produkte finden, jedes Mal neue Entdeckungen machen. Es ist wirklich ein wunderbarer Ort.
In order to further promote balance of import and export trade and to increase imports, the International Pavilion was set up at Canton Fair in 2007, which provides opportunities for overseas enterprises to explore the Chinese market and for domestic enterprises to purchase overseas products. Currently, the International Pavilion consists of 6 specialized themes, which are in Phase 1 and Phase 3, with an exhibition area of 20,000 square meters. More than 8,000 high-quality overseas enterprises from over 100 countries and regions have successfully entered the Chinese market to achieve mutual benefits, win-win results, and common development together with Chinese enterprises. Canton Fair has always paid great attention to product quality and safety, and all exhibitors must undergo qualification assessment and strict selection. 80% of exhibitors should have their export volume reaching a set standard, and 5% of exhibitors shall be different every year. Canton Fair encourages low-carbon, environmentally friendly, and energy-saving products to take part in the fair, and works closely with quality supervision authorities in various regions on quality supervision. Canton Fair is devoted to maintaining its reputation and brand image of Made in China and China's #1 fair. Canton Fair is a role model among Chinese trade fairs in terms of intellectual property protection. Canton Fair has offices for handling disputes and complaints with respect to intellectual property, product quality and safety, and trading, so as to provide customers with information and arbitration to handle trade disputes and complaints in a timely manner, and build a fair and just trading environment. To encourage innovation, Canton Fair has established the Product Design and Trade Promotion Center, which invites overseas designers, color strategy experts, and authoritative specialists in trend analysis to interact with exhibitors, thereby effectively broadening the international design vision of domestic export enterprises and advancing the independent innovation process. Up to the 117th Canton Fair, a total of 522 design companies from 15 countries and regions, including France, Greece, Italy, and the Netherlands, have participated in PDC activities. The cumulative total of the net design display area is 7,273 square meters, and a total of 257 theme activities have been held. China Foreign Trade Center, the organizer of Canton Fair, provides buyers and exhibitors with thoughtful services at any time. It strives to build a smart Canton Fair from various perspectives, such as buyer invitation, exhibition organization, e-commerce, and on-site services. In 2014, the Canton Fair community was built on Facebook, the international social media platform, with hundreds of thousands of fans. The internet promotion campaign has been realized globally. Cross-industry cooperation has been carried out with China Southern Airlines, Emirates Airlines, and international hotel groups. Various activities, such as advertisement reward for new buyers, media resource exchange program, and iShare, have been carried out to effectively improve the promotion efficiency. Online system for operation of the International Pavilion and evaluation system for brand section have been developed. The official website of Canton Fair has been optimized and adjusted to deliver the latest Canton Fair information to buyers through multiple channels. The online leasing function of Easy Exhibitor platform has also been further improved, with 11 newly added convenient online services. The online leasing function has also been launched in the WeChat account, and the location navigation interaction service has been introduced. Various banks are ready to provide customers with convenient financial services. Inside the exhibition venue, there are restaurants offering all kinds of cuisine from all over the world.
Auf der Messe findet man überall Freunde, Trendinformationen und vielfältige Geschäftschancen. Vielleicht liegt gerade darin die Anziehungskraft dieser Messe. Man kommt mit Erwartungen und fährt mit Geschäftserfolg nach Hause.
Canton Fair allows customers to work and rest in a quiet, tree-lined environment. The Westin Pazhou is a 5-star hotel in the Canton Fair complex. The aerial gallery bridge in the hotel provides access to areas A, B, and C of the Canton Fair complex, and the rooms offer a nice view of the beautiful Pearl River and Guangzhou.
Auf der Messe kann man mit den bedeutendsten chinesischen Außenhandelsunternehmen Kontakt aufnehmen und Produkte von bester Qualität kaufen. Wenn Sie nach Hause fahren, bringen Sie nicht nur Bestellungen ein, sondern auch wertvolle Freundschaften.
Li Wan has never been absent from Canton Fair since its establishment and is a witness to its birth and growth.
每一届都不知道好像只能让我找得到。When you ask to a French guy or Spanish buyer or anyone in Europe, what is this? After the Canton Fair, what is the second fair in the world? Nobody knows. It's not only that it's the biggest fair, it's the only last big fair. And this is very good that we don't have to do 20 fairs. Because 20 fairs every 6 months, it's very difficult to do that. One big one is much more convenient for us. I think that is the success. Not only sourcing from China, that's the last few years, also foreign templates, and stuff like this. One day, I started a business and still we have. But don't like the business. I have been attracted of all the other things, culture, the history, the folk, the people.
广交会创办以来，在世界人民心中是友谊的纽带、贸易的桥梁。我们欢迎世界各地的朋友来广交会做客。
Wow, that's inspiring. That makes you want to go.
Lucia, this is Mark in Charlotte. Do you have relationships with the vendors so that people that want to get out and actually see the production facilities, do they have the ability to get out and go out to the countryside and visit and see how things are being produced and have discussions with the vendors themselves?
Well, actually, if you come to the Canton Fair, you visit the stands, you meet the exhibitors. If you want to know how they produce their products, you can directly contact them. And actually, in our official website, we have introduction of each one of our exhibitors, their way of contact. Maybe before you come to the Canton Fair here in Guangzhou, you can contact them and maybe make an appointment with them. So you can get closer to the vendor before you take a long flight to China.
Great. That's always good advice. In terms of your displays, if an American firm wants to come and display, are all of your details for making those arrangements on your website?
You mean what if the American companies wants to exhibit their products or
Yes.
else?
Yes, if they want to come and exhibit their products. Is the
Yes.
information on your website?
Yes. You can see in our on our website there is a column called International Pavilion. That's for the company outside Chinese mainland. The company, if they want to exhibit in Canton Fair in Canton Fair's exhibition hall, they can find our staff to apply for the stands. And the International Pavilion only opens in phase 1 and phase 3.
Good, thank you. And those have specific product ranges for the scope of the fair. As part of this, with Americans coming, does your office arrange to have interpreters available to them?
Yes, we do provide this service of interpretation, and we have a hotline you can call at the numbers and apply or by employing our local interpreter.
Great. I don't have any other questions of our staff here. Doug, did you have any from previous presentations you have been making?
Yes, could you talk a little bit, Lucia, about the accommodations? Where would you recommend people staying when they're in Guangzhou? What regions, what areas of the city, how close in proximity?
Okay, also in our official website, there is a column called the travel and accommodation. And inside this web, you can click on them and then see a list of recommendation of hotels with different star ranking in Guangzhou City. And also you can, if you know the city quite well, you can also live in the other city near Guangzhou, like Foshan or Dongguan. And then you can take a bus earlier in the morning and then come to the Canton Fair exhibition hall.
Gotcha. Okay. Very, very good. You know, in terms of special visas, I know when we did this event the other day, one of the people was actually working on a visa already, but now he was looking to accelerate it. Do you have any knowledge about, you know, as people coming in from Charlotte, coming in from the U.S., what special visas they may have, not just to go to Guangzhou, but if they decide to visit a plant in the countryside, do they need to take any special precautions, either with the government, telling the government where they're going, or anything regarding their own travel?
Well, I think the most you better ask for some advice from the local Chinese embassy in the U.S. But as far as I know, I don't think there are any other things or what you call precaution that should be taken when you are in Guangzhou in China.
Okay.
Hey, Doug, let me spring off of that. Lucia, do you know whether we have any firms from the Charlotte or the North Carolina region currently signed up for the fair?
Well, actually, there were quite a few companies from Charlotte. They have been to the Canton Fair for more than 10 sessions or more, or 5 to 6 years and more. So they may not have signed up with the fair, but they know the exhibitors in Canton Fair quite well. So I don't mean what you refer to sign up, but I think they know Canton Fair quite well by communicating and doing business with the exhibitors here.
Lucia, would they be on your website right now? If we went out to your website, could we find the exhibitors and find where they are by U.S., by North Carolina, by Charlotte?
We only list out our exhibitors, but maybe with no information of their trading with the foreign buyers.
Okay.
Since this information is not open to public, I think.
Okay. Well, we're going to turn now to Todd Cornell, business consultant with Culture 668. He is a Chinese culture authority and business consultant and interpreter and has lived there for over 20 years. So Todd, can you flesh out the introduction?
Could you hold on for a second? So please pause for a second, Todd. You know, in the case of Lucia starting the conversation today, unfortunately, we've had a video outage, and we're working on that. So we will play the video, and we'll come back to that. But Lucia, considering that, I know it's late there, and that you'll be leaving us. Is there anything else that you wanted to say about the Canton Fair? So after Todd speaks, we'll show the video. Is there anything else that you would like to say before you sign off?
Well, I think finally what I can say is that I think the trade situation between the two countries still goes well. So I still welcome you to the Canton Fair in the coming April. That is what I say to you, all of you.
So I think in your case, is this you've been to the Canton Fair before? That you're new, but you're relatively new to the Canton Fair, aren't you?
Are you asking me?
Exactly. You personally are relatively new to working with the Canton Fair.
Well, I have been working here for several years, and I think I know the fair quite well. But seems now everything are changing so quickly. So I keep learning, and still I need to know more about the U.S. buyers. So I think our cooperation will still go on.
That sounds good. In terms of that interaction, do you end up meeting with many of the people who attend the event? And for instance, I think last year we had a member visit, and they visited with your team. Are you available to meet up with some of the attendees that are coming to the fair?
Of course, you tell me their visiting time, and I think I can meet them here in Guangzhou.
Okay, that sounds very good. So thank you.
Yes, we can follow up later. Maybe you can email me later. We can talk about that.
Okay, we'll talk to you again later. Thank you for taking the time this evening.
Oh, okay. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you.
And then our next speaker is Todd Cornell, who, as Mark mentioned, has been to the fair many times, and I think you're going to really enjoy his presentation. Todd, please, you're next.
So thank you, Doug. Nice to be here this morning, this afternoon, this evening. And 首先感谢广州会的支持和协助。There's a lot of support from the Canton Fair and everything that they offer. It's an amazing event. And as you can see, there's even panda bears. So today I would like to talk with you a little bit about business in China. And really, the way to be successful in China is by being able to create good relationships. So in order to get the most out of the Canton Fair, one thing is that you need to be there with somebody who can help you to bridge the cultural linguistic gaps. And depending on the people that you're interacting with, and it's kind of hard to know, those gaps could be larger than others. And so it's good to have people who are able to help you to work through that cultural linguistic situation. If you have somebody who is very well versed in both cultures, then that's going to give you a lot more opportunity, because you'll be able to have the opportunity to work the two cultures in a way that there's a lot of synergy that can happen. So what you want to do is you're going to want to visit the manufacturers or the reps' booths. And one big question that you want to ask yourself is, are they a manufacturer or a trade company? And this is something that even when you ask them, they may be a trade company, what that really means is that trade companies tend to charge more because they're a middleman, and they are the ones who will work with the factories. So if you're unable to accomplish that yourself or don't have people that can help you with working with the factories, then a trade company may be good for you. But pricing and control will be a lot better when you can work with the factories and manufacturers on your own. That gives you the ability to directly interact with them, visit the factories, see what's going on, and it gives you a good idea of, you know, how to interact. And also, it's a good way to create a relationship, which is really one of the most important aspects of working with the Chinese, is the relationship. So for your mode of qualification, the Canton Fair does a lot of work to qualify a lot of the people and the companies who come in, the manufacturers and factories and the trade companies. But we also, there are so many that we also need to be vigilant in doing our own qualification, and that's done by visiting different factories and whatnot, and we'll get to that in the next slide. So one thing is to consider the Canton Fair versus manufacturing hubs. And if you're looking for a product that is sourceable at the fair, you're looking for product ideas, and that's something that I think that the Canton Fair offers, is a lot of really good opportunities to see what other people are doing, around and see what other manufacturers and even other buyers are doing on the other side of the world. And it gives you some really good ideas of possibly things that you can do to tweak your product, to improve your product, including little small pieces that you can add to your product. I was at the Canton Fair last summer with, or last October, with a client, and walking around gave us all sorts of ideas of little things that can be done to their present product to improve it. And so it's a really good place for doing some brainstorming. And then if your product design requires specific manufacturers, or you prefer to source direct to manufacturers, then you can also consider visiting some of the manufacturing hubs around China. And there's quite a few. Just as an example, there's Trenzhou, which they're known for bags. There's Shenzhen, which is known for technology. So there are a lot of different manufacturing hub cities that are worth visiting too. If you meet your manufacturers at the Canton Fair, then as Lucia mentioned, you want to be able to set up an opportunity to visit the factories, because that's the best way to be able to qualify them, is by interacting with them, seeing them, meeting with the boss, and creating that relationship. So one of the best ways to qualify a factory is through visits and relations. And so you go straight to the factory. You arrange a time. When I was there in October with my client, we went to visit several factories in the Guangzhou area and set those up just right then. We met the factories right there in the fair, and I was able to arrange to have us meet with the owners of the factory, have lunch. One factory we went to, they had lunch and then we had dinner. So it was a really good opportunity to get to know the factory, to get to know the people, and establish a good relationship for moving forward and for good cooperation, which is all really important. That relationship is so important. Also an opportunity to discuss the needs and the expectations, and then to continue those discussions, as sometimes discussions in China may take a little bit longer than what we're expecting or what we're used to, but it's really good for us to be flexible and recognize that we're dealing with a different culture and understanding that. And so that brings me to culture and business in China. And basically in China, culture eats everything for breakfast, and it happens early in the morning. So we don't want to really expect that we can just go to China and act like an American and everything will be great, and just feel like everybody understands our language, they understand our culture because they watch our movies. We really want to know more about them. That's one of the important aspects of dealing with China. And so if we want to be successful with China, we need to learn from China. And this is something that the Chinese have known for thousands of years, and they do it without even thinking about it. It's an inbred, innate aspect of their mentality and their mindset. They are very good at learning about the people they're interacting with, and they're very good about being able to work with those people. Just like in the Tao Te Ching, it talks about water flowing. And the Chinese are very much like that. They're able to adjust and adapt in a way that is in their benefit. And so this is something that we also want to take into consideration when we're dealing with China, when we're interacting with Chinese companies, even in friendships. And Chinese thought today, the way the Chinese people think today, their language is influenced by over 4,000 years of classical literature and classical philosophies. So the foundation of Chinese culture is made up of 3 philosophies. And those philosophies are all based in harmony. And so the 3 philosophies that make up those Chinese thought that are based in harmony are Confucianism, which deals with social life, Buddhism, which deals with inner life, and Taoism, which deals with relationship to nature. And so this is something this is the base of the culture of the Chinese society and the Chinese culture, the Chinese civilization. So there's 2 icons as we move forward that I'd like you to pay attention to. The one icon here, which is Sun Tzu, the person who created the art of war. And so we want to take into consideration the strategy and vigilance. And the yin-yang is a representation of harmony and balance. And so considering the different interactions that are going on inside what we're seeing. So here we have harmony. And so recognizing that harmony has a lot of things going on around it. And yin-yang is also based out of harmony. The Chinese culture, the Chinese language is very much established in the form of yin-yang, in a harmony, in a balance. One thing that we want to do as a strategy is to avoid conflict. And there again, going back to the example of water, is being able to be flexible and being able to adjust as we need to. And the second one is nothing is for sure. And this is actually something that the Chinese tend to use as a way to sometimes balance out. It's a mindset. And usually what will be said is 不一定. And so when we hear that, we just sort of know that they're finding a center space and they're being able to not react in one way or the other. And so that helps us to it opens up the opportunity for things to move in one way or another, rather than being set in the way. It's more of being able to just be open to, well, I'm not really sure. So recognizing that is a good way to be able to understand how the Chinese work. So this is be strategic. It's important to be strategic. We need to have a strategy when we're interacting with the Chinese, because they have a strategy with us. That's something that they do. There again, it's an aspect of their culture. It's something that they do without thinking about it. Also practicing flexibility, which is there again, going back to the concept of water, adjusting, being able to move through the mountains, yet we're moving the mountains, but we're also doing it very slowly and not in an invasive way. And relationship trumps all. Relationship in China is the most important thing. If you have a relationship with the boss, then you're going to get things done. If you have a relationship with the customer service agent, then you're going to have those challenges of getting things done. So you want to be able to establish a support system to achieve your goals. And that support system is established through the people who get things done, and that's the boss. And so these two are both a strategy. And then friendship is a relationship. In China, the Chinese talk a lot about friendship. And for us as Americans, friendship means something very different. For the Chinese, relationship is a friendship. And it's not the kind of friendship that we're thinking of. It's a kind of a friendship that people work together, they support each other, and they find ways to make things work. So interpersonal relationships, there again, this is a strategy, and it's one of the most valuable currencies you're going to need while you're in China and interacting with the Chinese is that interpersonal relationship. So you want to nurture friendly and supportive relationships. There again, it's a strategy. And those sort of relationships are worth their weight in gold. You never want to be difficult as a strategy. It's there again, being like that water flowing through the mountains. We're slowly making changes. We're not abruptly tearing things down, but yet we're still making changes. So there's an expression in Chinese, 惜墨如金, which means precious ink is valuable as gold. And that's used a lot in Chinese to also represent the idea of relationship. And in the sense of relationship, the ink is the relationship. And so there again, it's the precious relationship is valuable as gold. So one thing as a strategy is you want to meet the company owner. There again, as I mentioned earlier, it's only the boss who can get things done. And so we want to be able to have a relationship with the boss. If whoever you're working with isn't able to get you in to meet the boss, then you need to figure out some way to get in there. And that's something that I always find to be pretty easy, because as soon as I open my mouth and speak fluent Mandarin, it sort of opens the doors. And so it's easy to get in and meet the boss and have some good conversations. So there again, nothing is for sure. There's an expression in Chinese, don't have a heart that desires to harm others, but have a heart that protects yourself from others. And this is something that all Chinese know. Even children know this. They grow up with the idea that I don't want to hurt anybody, but I also need to be careful. And it's something that if you understand the Chinese society, that you can see how it works into the society. And it's something that's been a part of the society for thousands of years. It has nothing to do with our idea of good or bad. It's just simply the way their culture works, the way their society works, and it works very well. And so we also, going into China, want to be able to apply their ways of doing things, and that is through being aware of situations. We also want to protect ourselves and be careful. There are people in any country and anywhere we go who are maybe looking to take advantage of us. And we need to be aware of that. As Americans, sometimes we just tend to think that people who smile and walk up and are friendly are nice people. But in the rest of the world, it doesn't necessarily work that way. And I think the more we are seeing our own country, it's starting to get a little bit more complex. Don't be an open book. What that means is that there again, as Americans, we think that sharing things, opening up to people is being friendly. And in our culture, yes, that is. But in other cultures, that may be something that can be taken advantage of. It may be something that actually expresses weakness. It has a lot of different connotations. So don't just simply share information. Just share what you need to share. Give the information that is necessary, and try and get as much information as you can from the people that you're interacting with. But at the same time, don't just share any information of your own. Contracts in China are dealt with much differently. If the contract is in English and Chinese, Chinese will be the language that will be the legal language, and that will change the way the contract is understood from English. In some instances, quite a lot. They don't have the binding that we would expect, but there again, having good relations with the factories, with the manufacturers, with the people that you're working with, those relationships, that sense of trust that's built over time, will be the things that are going to help you move through situations and challenges. So I've put together a culturally correct Chinese PDF here, and feel free to go onto my website, or you can email me and download a copy of it. It has some phrases, some pleasantries, some cultural aspects for introduction to China when you're going over to China, things that you can say. And there's also on YouTube, there's also some pronunciation. So hopefully that can offer you something that will help give you insight into the Chinese language, simplicities, how to show expression of appreciation and whatnot. So some areas that I can help you with: I can accompany you to China, I can assist you in your negotiations, interpreting, product sourcing, help you with arranging your factory visits, business communications, and I also do training on Chinese business etiquette. So if you're interested in contacting me, there's my email, and you can connect with me on LinkedIn and also download my culturally correct Chinese. Thank you.
Thank you very much for a terrific presentation. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Terrific. Hey, you touched upon business, you've touched upon culture, you also have the command of the language. It's quite a bit of expertise. How did you go about gaining all that?
Well, I lived in China for 20 years. I was over there in the early 80s, and so that opened up a lot of opportunities to work with a lot of incoming foreign corporations, Corning Glass, Hilton, United Airlines, and such. And so getting in there early just put me in an opportunity to also learn the language, because English wasn't very widely spoken. And when people wanted to speak English, I told them I didn't speak English, I spoke French. And so I still got the opportunities to speak Chinese.
Look at you. How many times have you visited the Canton Fair itself?
I've been there, I believe, 3 times. I was there last October, and I was also there with a furniture manufacturer that I worked for. I was managing their office in Harbin. And so we went down looking for furniture components and whatnot.
Great. Hey, let me turn now to 2 real kind of technical issues. Is it too late to sign up for this spring fair in April and May?
No, I don't think so. Not at all.
Good.
And also, Mark, I wanted to share, somebody was asking a question about visas, and I just wanted to suggest that people don't go through the embassy or the consulate to get a visa. I would suggest using a visa service, and I can share the one that I use. It's Mile High Visa, and I'm not giving them a promotion. I'm just saying they did an excellent job of getting me a 10-year visa within days almost.
Well, with the timing of this and the fair coming about, that's really good information to help expedite this. And in that regard, my last question is really related to how a company that's sitting here in Charlotte determine that they really want to go to this and make best use of it. Do you have any criteria?
I would say that you just go. I don't think there's really a question in there, because once you go and once you see what's available and once you're there, it's a game changer in a lot of ways. If a company is looking to, and it depends, I think, on if they're looking to go over and showcase their own products, or if they're going over in search of products. So if the finances aren't a problem, I would say going, it's not going to hurt anything. And if you want me to take you, I'll also take you. I'll tour you around China too.
Gotcha. Again, thank you very much for that very stimulating presentation. I want to turn it back over to Doug for the remainder of our speakers. Doug?
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to give a testimonial for Todd. I've seen him in action. One of the things that really impressed me, he has given a presentation like this at another city in Detroit. And so after the event, he and I went to a Chinese restaurant that I had known, and it turns out that Todd had known as well, and he actually knew one of the waitresses. She had worked there for many, many years, so they started going off in Chinese. And so as I watched him that time, and then as I watched him online through LinkedIn and through other social media on his trip to Canton Fair last October, it just truly impressed me in terms of what his capabilities are within the Chinese culture and at the Canton Fair. So I can't speak highly enough about what Todd could bring for your business. I certainly encourage you to contact him and have a conversation. I would guess conversations are free. Above and beyond that, there might be some fee that he could work out, but he's very happy to speak with anybody, especially if you're a Global Chamber member. So thank you, Todd, for all you do. Our next speaker is Robert Ross, and actually we became familiar with Robert Ross in that Detroit event. We had been told about involvement with Canton Fair, and it turns out Rob has been there for 20 years, 20 I think consecutive years, over 20 years. He's the vice president of operations at Chamberlain Marketing Group. Rob, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me, Doug?
Oh, we can hear you actually perfectly. You're calling in from Taylor, I think.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so right all the way across the world here in Michigan. And so tell us more about your experience with Canton Fair. It's a good experience.
Oh, it's a terrific experience. I'd like to just, comment on some of the things that Todd said in his presentation. I mean, a lot of his information was very helpful and spot on. I think that, just knowing the culture and kind of knowing what you're getting into prior to, getting on that 16 to 17-hour flight from here to China is something that's very important. I've actually been traveling to China since about 1999, and I've had, great success in purchasing directly from a number of factories that have basically exhibited at the Canton Fair, probably in excess of $100 million over the past 17 to 18 years. Items from automotive portfolio manuals that hold the glove box portfolio to several different OEM parts that we basically developed from scratch, to different surprise and delights where if you bought an automotive vehicle, you received something in the mail for purchasing it, whether it be a set of director chairs that we did for Ford Motor Company or a set of 2 Yeti-style coffee mugs or something of that nature, to basic, normal promotional projects, whether it's plush or Energizer or different items that we've done over the years. A number of the factories that we work with have been on display at the Canton Fair, and what I've noticed that's been the most important thing over the years at the Canton Fair is the Canton, Fair, basically the people that developed the Canton Fair and the commerce over in China have made it much more easy for international travel over there. I would say over the past 10 years, just the infrastructure of being able to get to the fair and being able to coordinate yourself and get through the fair has been unbelievable. Just the new location, the new facility, the new exhibition center is much more organized. It's on 2 floors as opposed to probably, 8 or 10 floors, which was the last one was on, in 3 or 4 different halls. And just the organization of it, it's much more manageable than it was in the past.
Very good.
So I don't know if there were questions, Doug. I'm usually pretty good about, answering questions. I'd rather than me just talk for 10 minutes, if people had questions in regards to my experience over there, I'd have no problem answering questions, and that might be the best way if anyone has any questions.
Okay.
We had one from the audience in Charlotte.
Are there any questions for Robert here? You said you've been going over for over 20 years. What was your first trip?
My first trip was in 1998 was my first trip. I was, I was 28 years old, and I went over there as a very young American, and fortunately we were part of the International Global Trade Group, which was set up with 9 or 10 different countries from around the country, and there were a lot of experienced importers at the time that I kind of, went underneath their wing, probably different people from Italy and also from France and from Belgium that are all great sourcing individuals, and I was able to walk the show with them and meet a lot of the factory owners that they've worked with and sourced products with for several years. And I was, very fortunate with the people that I was able to tour and visit the Canton Fair with.
Okay. How would you comment on a couple of the things that Todd talked about, which was, visiting the factory and talking to management, having dinner with them and making the connection there? And then what about representation and, how to basically, either bring someone with you or have someone over there that you know and trust or is kind of on your dime?
I would agree completely with that in regards to, meeting the factory owner and talking to the factory owner and dealing with the factory owner. I think it's just like doing business in the United States where people buy from people that they like and people that they can associate with. And if you have even though you might speak a different language, most factory owners, I think, have, very good, they say that they can't speak English very well, but they can speak English very well. Most of the factory owners, I would say, are very fluent in English, a lot more fluent than English than most Americans are in Cantonese or Chinese. But I think that if you go out to dinner with someone and you meet the person and you find out if you feel that the person is trustworthy, you visit the factory, you see what's happening in the factory, you make sure that they have potable water, you make sure that their dormitories are safe and clean and have the proper fire escapes, and you check a few of the different human resource cards, or basically applications that people have, to make sure that all of the people that are working there are compliant. I mean, obviously you can't do that with every single person at the factory, but you take random people and you grab a badge when you're walking through the factory and you ask to see the information for a particular individual. And most good factories will have that on file. In regards to the relationships, I mean, I've had numerous factory owners that I still speak with till today that I haven't worked with in probably 5 or 10 years. I think that the Chinese culture is one of, they like the partnership and they like long-term partnerships. They don't want the one nice order and done. They want something that it's going to last for years and build over time, and they look at every relationship as an opportunity for growth.
Have you ever had to fire someone, basically, that you've worked with?
We've had to fire factories in the past where we've had issues. We work with a lot of different independent testing agencies like Buena Veritas and SECO, Asian Inspection, and SGS, and a number of the different agencies that do a lot of our testing for us. A lot of times we'll have independent companies go in and perform audits on the factories before we even step foot in their factory. So if I'm working on a large project for something that I don't need until maybe January or February, I'll have a factory audit take place now, and then I'll do a surprise audit on the factory when I'm there in October, and then we might place the order at the same time. Well, when I get there in October, I'll already have the sample, I'll already have the proof, and I'll kind of show up at the factory, and I'll work with the factory owners and basically possibly place the order while I'm over in October, so that way the goods deliver by the end of the year to hit my event date of January.
So one question every Chinese company I meet in China asks me about tariffs, and if we have any suggestions for them to go through this period of time here. How would you answer that?
So what we're doing, Doug, is actually we're doing it on both sides. So we're trying to make the factories aware of it, and at the same time, when I'm quoting something now that's going to be delivered after September 1st, because I think one of the first round of tariffs is supposed to go into effect after September 1st, we're actually putting on our quotes that we're sending out to a lot of our clients that, Chamberlain Marketing Group is, the quote that has been provided by Chamberlain Marketing Group dated, August 14th is set based on the current and approved duties and taxes and tariffs that are placed upon the goods we import. If something happens that is out of Chamberlain Marketing Group's control, that the recipient would be responsible for paying those additional duties and tariffs.
Wow. Okay. And these are at the 25% level, I think. Is that?
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, some are at 10%, some are at 25%. Okay. We just did about 150,000 piece hat order for one of our customers, and hats are one of the items in compliance. And what I basically did is I called the buyer up and I said, hey, Jordan, thank you very much for the opportunity. It's almost a $200,000 hat order. I really appreciate the opportunity to work with your company. However, I just want to make you aware of this. Before I send you an email that accepting your terms and conditions, I want to make you aware that I'm accepting the terms and conditions, with one difference, and that is if the tariffs change and I have no control over what Donald Trump basically implements, that your company is going to be held responsible for that, because whether it's myself or any other importer you're dealing with, we're all going to be held responsible for the same new tariffs, and it'll be something that's across the board. So if you want your hats for a Black Friday promotion, then this is something that you're going to have to abide by.
Gotcha. Thank you, Abdelhak, for the question. And I think that brings us to the end. We've got, thank you very much, Robert, for taking the time to speak today. Really appreciate it. And if anyone wants to get a hold of you, we know how to reach you.
Yep, they can reach out to me anytime. I'd be happy to help. And if anyone's looking for anyone to help them out with their promotional items, I'd love to get a phone call.
Awesome. Very good. We know where to go to. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Doug.
So Mark, that was the recording from Rob. You can tell he's an experienced guy, just like Todd is. It sounds like you have some questions there from the audience. Todd, I can see, is there. He may be able to answer it, but for any questions for Vladi specifically, or for Rob specifically, we'll need to get those questions to him. And so if that works for you, what would you like to do next?
First, I did have one question specific to things like specifications, because so much manufacturing is going on here in North Carolina, and there is a very, very strong demand for quality manufacturing. And as Robert was specifying, you do have to sometimes unannounced go in and look. Are there any other mechanisms that we can use, especially with Chinese companies, and I would even say specific to using tools like the WTO, that can help North Carolina manufacturers ensure that they're getting exactly what they're expecting in terms of their contract? Any thoughts on that?
So I will say that Vladi addresses that in his presentation very specifically to his products. So there'll be part of the answer of that with him. Todd, would you have any comments regarding that question? Is that an area that you're familiar with?
Well, that's something that really, in a lot of ways, it comes back to culture, because just the different cultural perspectives. And yes, there are a lot of regulations and whatnot in China, but sometimes they're dealt with a little bit differently than the way we deal with them. So there again, I'll say that relationship is so important. We really want to avoid any kind of illegal transaction, because by doing so, it also is putting jeopardy in the relationship for the supplier. And so we want to maintain that positive relationship. That's something that we want to find a balance in being able to apply the regulations, but at the same time having that ability and that flexibility to be able to recognize that relationship with the factory is really what's going to help us. Because if we can see ourselves as being sort of like a unit, we're working together to achieve something together, then that's going to offer a lot more opportunities for negotiating problems and challenges. Visitations are really important. It's probably, as Americans, we feel like we can just call somebody up and get something taken care of. In China, that is done a little bit differently. There's more of that personal interaction. So the more personal interaction that can be arranged or achieved, the better for the outcome of the situation. And so that's where Rob mentions, going over and I wouldn't like to call them surprise visits. I would like to call them, like a visit, because surprises sometimes that's putting a different twist on the relationship. And I don't think it's good to come in from a more pressuring perspective rather than a friendly perspective. So yeah, having lived in China for 20 years, understanding the language, the perspectives are so different from within their culture. And I think a lot of times it's good to take that into consideration, to be able to work within the culture and take advantage of the culture in a lot of ways.
That's a very good point. And I want to kind of extend that just a bit. You are really attuned to the culture. We have all of the small and medium-sized manufacturing here that is looking for good, reliable partners, once again, that will hit those specifications in terms of the product or the part or the component being delivered. But would you recommend in that regard that it's better to try to find another medium-sized business versus a very large business to use as your partner in manufacturing these components in order to have that ability to maintain the relationship and know that you have exactly what you want in terms of understanding and the ability to deliver?
I feel like that if you're going towards that, you're going to get more attention and possibly better attention. As far as some of the things that Rob said about checking some of the things that he suggested checking, I would feel really awkward about. And at the same time, I wouldn't necessarily want to judge that factory just because maybe they don't have all of this really well planned out or really well organized situation. That doesn't mean that they're not legitimate and that they don't have potential. So I think that working with the really large conglomerate factories sometimes, yeah, you may get, especially as a smaller, medium-sized factory or producer or whatever, you may get lost in the shuffle, and that makes it difficult to create that relationship, which really is so important. So when you can get in together with a company or even maybe cooperate with a smaller company and you're helping them and they're helping you, there again, it's creating that synergy and that balance, which I think is so important for success in China.
Good comment on balance. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Doug for an introduction for Laddie's presentation.
And thank you, Todd, for your somewhat surprise involvement in that that conversation. So one of the things that I think anybody who's successful in Asia recognizes, that you've got to be flexible, you've got to be resilient. When technology fails you, you find a way. You know, my first visit to China was to Beijing in 1988, which seems like a lifetime ago. And back in those days, there were power failures, which I didn't know about. So after I was getting ready to give a presentation to 300 automotive engineers as a young man, in front of all of these people, I had pulled together a PowerPoint presentation with about 300 slides and all sorts of parts. And we get to the building to do the presentation, and the power was off, and everybody else was very calm. I recognized that I needed power for those transparencies. It wasn't PowerPoint, it was transparencies, those clear things that you put over like a light. You need power for a light. So I was very nervous, and it turned out there was no power. For the first 2 hours of my 3-hour presentation, I had no power. So fortunately, I had brought parts, hoses and gaskets and things like that. That's what they were interested in finding out. And so I winged it. And so what you just saw Todd do in terms of jumping in and answering questions, you know, given our technical snafus, or whether it's that or whether it's anything, whenever you're at the Canton Fair, you've got to be flexible and resilient, and it's not going to go as you expect, but it will go better than you expect when you have that flexibility and resilience. And so one of those people that has that is our next speaker, Vladi Cornatianu. He's head of the Sino-American Business Development Company, and he's been involved for 30 years with China and 20 years with the Canton Fair. So we'll switch over to that recording right now. You're going to enjoy it.
I will get to some of the questions posed to Todd. Todd was very eloquent on his Chinese background. Although I've been going to China for as longer, or maybe longer, but I didn't have the ability to stay there long enough in order to learn Chinese, to speak Chinese. I wish I did. My next life, maybe. But some of the questions that you pose to Todd, you can pose to me, as I may have some answers. With that, thank you so much for participating in this event, promoting the largest trade fair in China, the Canton Fair. China Import Export Fair, also known as the Canton Fair, is held biannually in Guangzhou, southern China, with close proximity to Hong Kong every spring and fall over 60 years. Today will take about an hour from Hong Kong to Guangzhou by the bullet train. The Canton Fair is a trade show with a long history, the highest level of organization on the largest scale. It is the most comprehensive exhibition in the world, with the broadest attendance of Chinese and overseas buyers. It attracts more than 25,000 of China's best factories. Furthermore, over 200,000 global buyers participate in the fair year after year. I started in the apparel industry almost 30 years ago, manufacturing exclusively in China. During my extensive travels throughout the country to source and produce apparel labels for my US clients, I discovered not only its incredible history, culture, and natural beauty, but the new face of China, developing China, the incredible business opportunities China, the friendly and accommodating China. Sourcing at major trade shows, both in the mainland and at the Hong Kong Fashion Week, greatly enhanced my ability to locate the best Chinese factories for my clients. My trade missions to China opened the door for companies without prior international experience to start businesses and prosper there. I constantly strive to develop relations and trade events for the benefit of US companies. Besides the trade missions to the Canton Fair, I developed and participated in other mega events in Guangzhou, like the Los Angeles mayoral delegation in 2018, celebrating the sister city tripartite agreement with the city of Guangzhou, as well as the Los Angeles Festival in the fall of 2017, held at the Grandview Mall, one of the largest shopping malls in China. The goal was to promote Los Angeles companies, its culture, sports, entertainment, and tourism. The 18 days festival was a huge success, and I would encourage other cities to organize similar events for the benefit of their business community. I can credit Canton Fair for my longevity in business and my success for all these years. The ability to source just about any product that a client would give me at one time or another and bringing quality products back to the US could not have been achieved without participating in this fair twice a year, year after year. There was no single time that I had a product requested by a client that I was not able to find at the Canton Fair. And I can tell you that at times I had some very difficult requests. Not only that I found those products, but I was able to compare quality, prices, minimums, and most importantly, the reliability of a particular factory. Even so, with all my experience, there were times when a factory would not perform. Under any other circumstance, one would have little recourse with a Chinese factory, unless that factory participated in the Canton Fair. Any issue, the Canton Fair's complaints department would take care of it, and at times factories were prohibited from future shows if they did not resolve the dispute with a foreign client. No Chinese factory is willing to lose the booth at the Canton Fair. Thus, resolution of a dispute is achieved. I can tell you this from personal experience, as I faced those situations in the past, and that's why I encourage anyone asking me about China sourcing in general to go to the Canton Fair. The management stands by the factories allowed into the fair and by the foreign buyers sourcing at the fair. Same goes for the businesses participating as exhibitors at the Canton Fair in their international pavilion. We work diligently with all exhibitors in choosing the right location for the products, facilitate meetings with Chinese distributors, buyers, and retailers. The Canton Fair has extensive media and social media coverage before, during, and after the fair, promoting the participating companies. Besides the International Pavilion, another venue for foreign design companies to showcase their products is the PDC area, Product and Development Center of the Canton Fair, and the Canton Fair Fashion Week fashion shows. Canton Fair Product Design and Trade Promotion Center, part of the Canton Fair, was launched in 2011, aiming to provide an efficient service platform for cooperation between overseas enterprises and Chinese manufacturers, as well as Chinese buyers. By organizing exhibitions, design forums, matchmaking meetings, fashion shows, promotional displays, as well as full booths for the participating foreign companies, PDC serves as a direct and efficient bridge between the foreign exhibitors and Chinese buyers, as well as overseas buyers. PDC is encouraging brands that would like to license their products in China to participate in their organized events. Categories include apparel, gifts, seasonal items, toys, luggage, sporting goods, and many more. The exposure of foreign brands participating in the International Pavilion or Fashion Week locations is huge, not only to the Chinese market, but to the international buyers coming from over 200 countries. Both of these international showcase opportunities take place during the first and third phase of the Canton Fair. Please look at the fair's website to see the categories exhibiting during those two phases. The major categories of products shown during the Canton Fair in general are as follows. Phase 1, April 15 to 19th, electrical and electronic products, technology, vehicles, building materials, and industrial products, plus the International Pavilion. Phase 2, April 23rd to 27th, ornaments, toys, gifts, and furniture. Phase 3, May 1 to 5th, stationery, apparel, footwear, bags, food, and medicine, plus the International Pavilion. The International Pavilion set up during Phase 1 and 3 is reserved specifically for foreign enterprises that are looking to showcase and expand their business footprint in China. There is always talk about IP protection in China, and we all know that this is a very serious issue. Once again, the Canton Fair cracks down very hard on any factory or agent, big or small, that would bring fake merchandise to the fair or display licensed products without the approval of the foreign licensor. With that said, companies should have confidence when exhibiting at the fair or allowing factories to produce their private labels or brands. Of course, trademark registration is as good of an idea in China as it is in the US. My long-time consulting relations with the Canton Fair gave me the opportunity to work with their management and in particular with the Buyers Department and PDC Product and Development Center of the Canton Fair in developing their international markets, creating different programs at the fair targeting international buyers, organizing fashion shows and evening events, assisting buyers with matchmaking opportunities, following up with the registered buyers after the fair, and informing them of future events are only a part of the efforts to make this mega trade show even better. On the other hand, we are facilitating international brands that want to open or expand their markets in China or into any other of the 200 or so countries that visit this fair with prime booth locations at greatly discounted prices, marketing tools, and matchmaking meetings with local and international buyers. Registration to the fair and hotel reservations can be easily done from the fair's website, but I can advise anyone or any group that needs more personal attention by offering free concierge registration, hotel reservations, and most importantly, guidance in China during the fair. For more details on the Canton Fair or China import fair that will take place in Shanghai in November, immediately following the Fall Canton Fair, please visit their websites or by contacting me. I'm open now for questions, and if anyone wants to email me later on with other questions, Doug has my email and can forward it to anybody looking for it. Thank you.
Really, really good conversation, really good information. You mentioned about the concierge registration. Could you talk a little bit more about what that means? Are you saying that people going to the fair does everybody have access to that?
No. If you are an individual and you want to go to the Canton Fair, you go to their website, and although it's not that simple, but you can register on the website. Some people run into an issue registering online. But when I take groups of 15, 20 people to the Canton Fair, I provide the information, passport, pictures, to the Canton Fair Buyers Department, and they issue all the badges. So the badges are ready when the group arrives in China, and that's the easiest way.
Okay, so you have special access, if you will. So
yes. Oh, absolutely. I do that all the time, and they provide me all the badges in an instant, no issue. Hotels, again, are very easily found on the Canton Fair website. They range from, obviously during the fair, they are more expensive than other times. They can range from, I would say, $100 a night to $600 a night, depending where you stay. If one would stay at the Westin, that it's obviously the most convenient and the most luxurious there, connected to the Canton Fair, that can range from $300 to $600 a night, depending on the phase. But there are many, many, many other hotels within walking distance.
Okay, that's great news. You mentioned about trademark registration. It sounds like, have you made use of that? Have you actually registered trademark there, and how easy you're doing?
Yes, trademark it's as simple as it's in the U.S. You just need a local lawyer that can be. I can recommend, or the U.S. consulate can recommend, the U.S. Economic Mission in Guangzhou. That's very simple, and it's as expensive or inexpensive as would be here, about $800, $900, $1,000 to register a trademark.
Gotcha. Are there other things like that visitors should be thinking about? Like, for instance, if they go over, like we were talking with Todd, and they go to a plant out in the countryside, are there visas or special permits or special permission that's required to be able to do that?
No. China changed, as Todd knows, tremendously from the 80s, or I would say from the 80s, when traveling throughout China was extremely difficult. Today it's as easy or easier than traveling in the US, because besides a million flights a day from anywhere to anywhere, you have the bullet trains that can take you practically across country from Guangzhou to Beijing in 8 hours, which is crazy, because to fly will take you 3 hours and 15 minutes to fly. By the time you go to the airport, and from the airport, you are at 6 hours. So a train, it's very easy to go to factories. Now, the necessity to go to factories, yes, Todd is correct. Although it's not as clear-cut and as easy to visit the factories, especially for a first-time buyer. China is overwhelming. Canton Fair is overwhelming when you go the first time. And basically, my recommendations to the people that they want to produce in China for the first time, and they have zero experience in manufacturing, forget the importing and duty issues, just strictly manufacturing, to visit the Canton Fair, talk to as many factories as humanly possible, and get a general idea of prices, qualities, sample making with different factories. And then it's a gut feeling after you talk to so many people which factory you should work with if you are as a first-time buyer. Unless I happen to be in China and I have a better understanding of different factories, or if Todd is in China, we'll have a better understanding. And he was correct on the factory versus trading company or agent. Very difficult, and I've been asking the Canton Fair to design the badges of the exhibitors to showcase if they are factories or if they are agents. They are reluctant to do that because most of the trade companies or agents, they will say, yes, we are factory. And they can take you even on a visit to the factory, and you think that yes, they are management, or a first-time buyer will never know unless you have that keen eye to understand. If you drive to the factory and the guard is asking the driver for his name, well, you know he's not, or the agent, you know he's not the owner of the factory. So, or if the dog does not recognize the guy coming to visit. So it's, there are tricks that you learn when visiting factories. Of course, it's ideally to meet the owners. It's not always possible. Sometimes, factories are too big and, you can never get to the owner unless you have, $20 million worth of orders. But there are many, many smaller factories that would perform as well. And in general, the owners are at the Canton Fair. But sure, factory visits are very important.
We have a question from the audience.
Yeah.
Is it Ryan?
Yeah, Ryan.
Ryan is a second-time questioner.
All right, so I just have a question.
Yes.
For answering the questions. I have a question on contracts. Are they in English? Any recommendations you have on things to watch out for with contracts over there?
You're talking about purchasing contracts. If you go there and you find a factory that is able to produce whatever you want to produce, of course, the contracts are in English.
Okay.
So they would send you the contract in English. There is a negotiation technique on how the payments are made, because that's very important. Most of the factories will require a down payment. First of all, if you produce your own goods, not buying something existing, and you have to make samples, you have to have a clear understanding of the cost of the samples. Sometimes they charge, sometimes they don't charge. And then the actual productions. In general, the Chinese factories, they want 30% down before the production is placed. And then when the production is done, the other 70% in order for them to put it on the boat and issue the bill of lading.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, the contracts are in English. The terms have to be very clear, because again, if you go to a dispute on any matter, you have to have documentation, money transfers, the contract, the samples produced. If there is something wrong, yes, the Canton Fair will take care of it, but you have to have proper documentation. And
what about are there any problems with once you purchase something from the point that it's not the correct product when it shows up?
Well, you shouldn't make a product that you have no idea what it is before it arrives here. So again, experience comes into play. I'll just give you a very quick example how I do samples with a new factory, because many factories I've been working with them for many, many years, and I don't need samples. But a new factory, I would give them my samples or design. So they have to make just what you call a fit sample. It doesn't matter if it's apparel or gifts or a brick. So they just make it for you. They ship it to the U.S. Obviously, you're going to pay for it. If that initial sample is good, then you go to production. Now, they have to make you pre-production sample, okay? Which means, again, make the original sample that they send you, but with the actual materials that the production is going to be in. So they send you that sample. If that's approved, then you go to full production. Now, full production is done. Then I tell my factories, okay, I have 100 boxes. I want you to pull a sample from box 1, 5, 15, 25, 55. In this size, that size, that size, that size, send it to me. If nothing is wrong, then the likelihood that anything else is wrong with the production is remote. Even so, if there are, let's say, out of 10,000 pieces, 20 defective, they give you credit on the next production. So there are ways of doing it without you being actually there. But again, like Todd mentioned before, you have companies that you can hire to do the inspection of the factory at different phases of the production.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Great information.
I'd like to thank all of our speakers, Lucia, Todd, Vladdy, Robert. We have a lot of great information. Charlotte is a manufacturing hub in the Southeast. We have over 1,000 firms, and so there's a high interest in the Canton Fair. We also have one specific advantage, that we have a foreign trade zone. So even as tariffs become a discussion in any participation in manufacturing supply chain, we have a solution that can sidestep some of these issues in terms of tariffs. In closing, I would like to recognize that we've had some participation with board members, Dirk Lindenbach and Sarah Sachs. Thank you for your participation. With that, we will close, and once again, see you at the fair.